The snow fell heavy that Christmas Eve, each flake another weight on James Mercer's shoulders. He trudged the mile from the mill through drifts that reached his knees, rehearsing words he didn't want to say. There's no Christmas this year. Children, I'm sorry. 16 hours he'd worked that day, 16 hours, and still not enough. The mill had cut wages again in October. What used to feed a family of 4 now barely kept them in flour and firewood. Lucy was 8 now, old enough to understand. Tom was 6, young enough to still believe in miracles. And baby Emma 2 years old. 2 years since Mary died, bringing her into this world. Emma understood nothing except hunger and cold. James stopped at the edge of the clearing where his cabin sat. No lamplight showed in the window. He'd left before dawn, would return to darkness and cold, and 3 children who deserved so much more than a father who couldn't even manage Christmas. He pushed open the door. Warmth hit him first, then light lamplight, golden and soft, spilling across the rough-hewn floor. The scent of stew, rich with meat and onions, and music someone humming, low and sweet. A woman stood at his stove. James froze in the doorway, snow melting off his boots onto the threshold. The woman turned. She was perhaps 30, with dark hair pinned back and eyes that held no fear at his sudden appearance. She wore a simple gray dress, patched but clean, and an apron he didn't recognize. "You're late," she said, as if she'd been expecting him. "Supper's ready." Behind her, he saw the impossible his cabin transformed. A small pine tree stood in the corner, decorated with paper chains, Lucy's handiwork. He'd recognize it anywhere. The curtain by the window, torn for months, had been mended. Emma's clothes hung drying by the fire, clean for the first time in weeks. The table was set for 4. From the loft above came the sound of peaceful breathing. His children, asleep, safe. "Who are you?" The words came out rough. "How did you—" "Your daughter invited me." The woman ladled stew into a bowl. "You should eat. You look half dead." James's hands trembled as he took the bowl. From cold, he told himself. Only from cold. But standing in his own cabin, warm for the first time in months, smelling of home-cooked food, filled with gentle lamplight, he knew it was something else entirely. Something like hope. "I don't understand." James set down the bowl, appetite forgotten. "Lucy invited you. She's 8 years old. She pinned a note at the church." The woman reached into her apron pocket and produced a small square of paper, corners worn soft as if it had been carried a long time. "I was there looking for work, or shelter. Your daughter offered both." James took the paper with shaking fingers. Lucy's careful script. Letters formed with the precision of a child newly confident in writing "Angel Needed, 412 Pine Hollow Road. Daddy won't ask for help." His throat closed. Heat rushed to his face, shame and anger, and something that felt dangerously close to breaking. "She had no right to. I didn't ask for no." The woman's voice was gentle but firm. "You didn't ask." "That's what the note said." James looked up at her then. Really looked. She met his gaze steadily. No pity in her eyes, no judgment, just a bone-deep weariness that matched his own. "Who are you?" he asked again, but quieter this time. "Sarah Clark, widow. I came to Pine Hollow 3 days ago." She folded the note carefully and tucked it back in her pocket. "I saw your daughter's note yesterday afternoon. The address was clear, so I came." "You can't just—" James gestured helplessly around the cabin. "People don't do this. Walk into a stranger's home and—" "I didn't walk in uninvited. Your daughter invited me." Sarah moved toward the door, reaching for a thin coat that hung on a peg. "But if you'd rather I leave—" "Wait." The word escaped before he could stop it. She paused. "Hand on the coat." James noticed then what he should have seen immediately. She had nothing else. No bag. No bundle of possessions. Just the coat and the dress she wore. both showing the careful mending of someone who owned little and cherished what remained. "The stew," he said, grasping for reason when nothing made sense. "You made the stew. It's not right you should leave without eating." Sarah's hand fell away from the coat. "No, I suppose it's not." They sat across from each other at the table, the lamp between them casting long shadows. James ate without tasting, mind racing. Sarah ate slowly, as if she hadn't eaten much in recent days. "I needed somewhere to go," she said finally, breaking the silence. "You needed help. Sometimes things work out clean like that." From the loft above came a small voice. "See, I told you she'd come." Lucy. Not asleep after all. James heard Tom's sleepy reply. "How'd you know?" "I prayed for an angel," Lucy whispered. "And angels always come when you need them." Sarah's eyes met James's across the table. In that look, something passed between them. Understanding. Maybe, or just exhaustion meeting exhaustion. Two people too tired to pretend anymore that they could carry everything alone. "Stay tonight," James said. "It's too cold to go anywhere now. We'll figure out the rest in the morning." Sarah nodded. "Thank you." Neither of them mentioned that she'd already stayed long enough to cook supper and put 3 children to bed. Neither of them questioned how Lucy had known, with the certainty only children possess, exactly what her father needed but would never ask for. Sometimes things work out clean like that. James woke to the sound of Emma gurgling, not crying, gurgling. The happy sound she used to make before Mary died, before everything went dark and cold. He climbed down from the loft where he'd slept with the boys, leaving them tangled in blankets. The cabin was already warm. Sarah sat in Mary's old chair by the fire, Emma on her lap. Feeding her mashed oats with a patience he'd forgotten was possible. Lucy knelt beside them, helping. Tom sat at the table, actually sitting still for once, watching with wide eyes. "Morning," Sarah said without looking up. "Coffee's ready. Eggs too, if you want them." James poured coffee with hands that felt clumsy. When had someone last made him breakfast? When had he last woken to a warm cabin and children who weren't crying? "How did you know where things were?" he asked. "The oats. The coffee. Lucy showed me last night, after you left for the mill yesterday." Sarah glanced up then. She's a good helper. "Knows where everything is." Lucy beamed with pride. They ate together, the 5 of them, and over eggs and coffee the stories came out in fragments. James found himself talking, actually talking. Not just giving short answers to children's questions. About Mary. About how she died bringing Emma into the world. How the midwife said there was nothing anyone could have done. How he'd been drowning in grief and work ever since. About the mill-cutting wages. About working double shifts that still weren't enough. About lying awake at night doing arithmetic that never added up to enough. "I know about that arithmetic," Sarah said quietly. She fed Emma another spoonful of oats. "My husband died last spring. Fever took him in 3 days. I moved in with his parents." Her jaw tightened. "That was a mistake." "They weren't kind," James asked. "They were kind at first." Then they started talking about how I wasn't thinking clearly, how I needed rest, how maybe I should sign over my husband's property to them, just temporarily, until I was well again. Sarah's voice stayed level, but James heard the tremor beneath. "There was a doctor. They'd paid him to sign papers saying I was unfit, unstable." Lucy's eyes went wide. Tom stopped chewing. "I left 3 days ago," Sarah continued. "Took nothing but the clothes I wore, walked from town to town. When I saw Lucy's note yesterday, I knew." She stopped, swallowed. "I knew I was supposed to come here." The cabin went quiet except for the fire's crackle and Emma's soft sounds. Then Lucy asked the question that would change everything. "Will you stay for Christmas?" "Miss Sarah, please." Sarah looked at James. He looked back at her. 2 people drowning, each reaching for the other, both terrified of pulling the other under. But what if they could keep each other afloat instead? I can't pay you much, James said slowly. But you'd have a roof, food. The children. He gestured at Lucy's hopeful face, Tom's wide eyes, Emma reaching her small hands toward Sarah. They've already taken to you. I don't need much, Sarah said. Just somewhere safe. Then stay. The words felt like surrender and victory at once. At least through Christmas. Sarah's relief was visible, a tension leaving her shoulders he hadn't realized she carried. Thank you. Outside. The first real snow of winter began to fall, heavy flakes, the kind that would last until spring. The kind that would either bury you or blanket you in warmth, depending on whether you faced it alone or together. James watched Sarah with his children and felt something shift in his chest. Not love, not yet. But the first thaw after a long, hard freeze. Maybe that was enough to start with. 3 days passed like a dream James was afraid to wake from. Sarah moved through the cabin with quiet efficiency, transforming it not through grand gestures but through presence. She mended Tom's torn coat, taught Lucy to braid cornhusk dolls for the tree, sang to Emma while James slept past dawn for the first time in 2 years. He'd come home from the mill to find supper ready, children clean, the cabin warm. It felt like stepping back in time to before Mary died. But it was different, too. Sarah wasn't Mary. She was sharper-edged, more guarded. She didn't fill silence with chatter. She worked with her hands and watched the world with careful eyes. The children orbited her like small planets drawn to the sun. Tom followed her everywhere, chattering about rocks and birds and the colt that had been born at the neighbor's farm. Sarah listened as if every word mattered. Lucy held her hand constantly, showing her everything, her collection of smooth stones, her drawings, the spot by the creek where the ice was thickest. And Emma, who'd been fussy and crying since birth, settled in Sarah's arms like she'd finally found home. James watched from doorways, from the edge of rooms, his heart caught between gratitude and terror. What happened when Christmas passed? What if Sarah left? What if she stayed? He hadn't let anyone close since Mary died. The thought of losing someone again made his chest tight, made it hard to breathe. On the third day, Mrs. Fletcher stopped by. James was mending fence posts when he saw her approaching, all sharp angles and sharper eyes. She was the wife of the mill owner's foreman, a woman who collected gossip like some people collected coins. James Mercer. She didn't wait for greeting. Heard you've taken in a woman. That proper, with 3 little ones and no wife. James straightened slowly, hammer in hand. Mrs. Fletcher. People are talking. You know how it is. Her smile was thin. A man in your position. You should be careful. Appearances matter. Sarah Clark is helping with the children, James said evenly. It's a proper arrangement. Is it? Mrs. Fletcher's gaze swept past him to the cabin, through the window. Sarah was visible, braiding Lucy's hair. Seems mighty domestic for a hired woman. After she left, James found Sarah at the window, staring out at the road with an expression he couldn't read. You're afraid someone's coming for you, he said. Sarah didn't turn. Yes. Your husband's family. They won't give up easy. They want that property. And they're not above using the law to get it. She hugged herself. Though the cabin was warm, men with money can make anyone believe anything. You're safe here. Am I? She finally looked at him. Mrs. Fletcher isn't the only one who's noticed. If your reputation suffers because of me, if you lose your position at the mill, James, you can't afford that. Not with 3 children. He should have agreed. Should have started planning her departure before scandal touched his family. Instead, he said, let me worry about that. That evening, after the children were asleep, James found Sarah carving by lamplight. Small toys emerging from firewood, scraps a horse for Tom, a doll cradle for Lucy, A rattle for Emma. You're good at that, he said. My father taught me. Before he died, Sarah's knife moved with practiced ease. Said a person should always have something they can make with their own hands, something no one can take away. James sat across from her, watching the shavings fall like snow. Sarah, if they come for you, your husband's family, you tell me. I won't let them take you. Her hands stilled. Why? Because he stopped, searching for words. Because Lucy was right. We needed help. And you needed safety. Sometimes things work out clean like that. Sarah smiled then, small and sad. You're a good man, James Mercer. I'm a man who works too hard and still can't provide Christmas for his children. You gave them everything. You gave them you. She set down the horse, half carved. That's why Lucy felt safe writing that note. She knows you'd break yourself before breaking them. I couldn't save Mary. Mary's death wasn't your fault, just like my husband's death wasn't mine. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. We can't save everyone. Sometimes we can't even save the people we love most, but we can keep living. We can let other people in. We can try again. Her hand moved across the table, rested on his. Not romantic, not yet. Just connection. Warmth. Presence. You're not alone anymore, she said. James turned his hand over, fingers intertwining with hers. Outside, snow began to fall again. Inside, the lamp burned steady and warm. For the first time since Mary died, James let himself believe tomorrow might be better than today. Christmas Eve arrived with clear cold and bright stars. The cabin hummed with preparation. Lucy strung paper chains while Tom brought in firewood, important with the task. Emma sat in a basket surrounded by corn-husk dolls, gurgling her approval of everything. Sarah had been up since before dawn. James found her in the kitchen corner, finishing the last toy, the rattle for Emma. She'd carved it from a single piece of pine, the handle wrapped in soft leather scraps. Where'd you learn that? He asked, watching her work. Necessity. Sarah tested the rattle, wood beads clicking softly inside. After my husband died, I sold carvings at market. His parents didn't like it. Said it made them look poor. Having a daughter-in-law peddling crafts like a common... She stopped. They had opinions about everything I did. James poured 2 cups of coffee, brought one to her. You don't have to talk about it. Maybe I want to. She accepted the cup, hands curling around its warmth. Maybe I'm tired of carrying it alone. So she told him about her husband Thomas, gentle and kind, about the fever that took him before she could even say goodbye, about his parents, who'd seemed grateful for her presence at first, then slowly suffocating, how they'd wanted her to stop reading Too Much Thinking Isn't Good for a Widow, how they discouraged her friendships, how they'd brought in Dr. Preston with his cold eyes and colder pronouncements. Melancholia, Sarah said bitterly. That's what he called it. Said I was suffering from nervous exhaustion and needed constant supervision. They had papers drawn up. If I'd stayed another week, they'd have had me committed. So you ran. With nothing. Because if I'd packed a bag, they'd have known. I walked out like I was going to church and just kept walking. She looked down at the rattle in her hands. I was afraid to have children, you know. With Thomas, kept delaying. I thought we had time. And now I know we never have as much time as we think. Sarah glanced toward the main room where Lucy and Tom were laughing over something. These past days, with your children, I thought I'd missed my chance at family. But maybe family isn't always what we plan. Maybe it's what finds us when we stop running. James set down his cup. Sarah, I was afraid to have children too. After Lucy, after we saw how hard it was, how much it cost, I told Mary no more. She wanted more. I was too scared. Then Emma came anyway. And Mary, his voice cracked. I love them so much it terrifies me. Every day I wake up afraid I'll fail them. You haven't failed them. You work yourself to bone for them. But I couldn't give them Christmas. I couldn't even. Sarah's hand covered his on the table. Her touch was warm, solid, real. James Mercer, listen to me. You gave them everything that matters. You gave them love and safety and a father who shows up every single day no matter how tired he is. That's not failure. That's heroism. The words broke something open in him. Or maybe they stitched something closed. He couldn't tell which. I'm falling in love with you, he said. The words escaped before he could cage them. I don't know when it started. Maybe when I walked through that door and saw you at the stove. Maybe when you showed me Lucy's note. Maybe when you fed Emma this morning and she laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. I'm falling in love with you and I'm terrified. Sarah didn't pull away. I'm terrified too. I thought after Thomas died that I'd never feel this way again. Never want to. It's easier to be alone. Safer. Is it? No. She smiled, tears brightening her eyes. It's colder, though. They sat like that, hands clasped across the table, while lamplight painted gold on the rough cabin walls. From the main room came the sound of children playing, safe and happy and unaware that the adults they depended on were stitching together a new kind of family, from broken pieces. Finally, Sarah said, "There's something else you should know. Thomas's parents, they're not just wealthy, they're connected. The brother-in-law who came looking last year, who I heard was asking questions in Ashford. He works for the Territorial Marshal's office. If they find me, they'll have legal power behind them. Then we make sure you're protected too." How James didn't have an answer, not yet. But as he looked at Sarah's face in the lamplight, at the hope and fear mingled there, he knew he'd find one. Some things were worth fighting for. Some people were worth standing beside. No matter the cost. The knock came at dawn on Christmas morning. Heavy, deliberate. The knock of men who expected to be obeyed. James was already awake, building up the fire for breakfast. Sarah was in the side room where she'd been sleeping. At the sound, she appeared in the doorway, face drained of all color. "No," she whispered. "Not now." "Not today." James crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. "Stay inside. I'll handle this." He opened the door to find two men on his threshold. Both wore expensive coats and entitled expressions. The older one, perhaps 50, had cold eyes that assessed James like he was hired help. "We're looking for Sarah Clark," he said without preamble. "We're family. We've come to bring her home." "She doesn't want to go with you," James said evenly. The second man, younger, smiled without warmth. "I'm sure you mean well. Mr. Mercer. James Mercer. Mr. Mercer. I'm Theodore Clark, Sarah's brother-in-law. This is my father, William Clark. Sarah is not well. She needs proper care. Not..." His eyes swept the cabin's interior dismissively. "Whatever arrangement this is..." Sarah appeared behind James. "I'm not going with you." "Sarah..." William Clark's voice was smooth oil. "You're confused. Grief has made you irrational. We have Dr. Preston's assessment. You need rest. Proper supervision." "You have a bought signature on false papers," Sarah said, voice shaking but clear. "I'm not unwell. I just refuse to let you steal my husband's property." Theodore's smile vanished. "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth. Thomas left everything to me. You wanted me to sign it over to you for safekeeping. When I refused, suddenly I was having a nervous collapse. You ran away in the night like a mad woman. I left before you could have me committed against my will." Sarah stepped forward, chin lifted. "I know what you were planning. I heard you talking to Dr. Preston about the asylum in Cooperstown." The two men exchanged glances, James saw calculation there, strategy being revised. Mr. Mercer, William said, turning attention back to James. You seem like a reasonable man. Surely you understand this is a family matter. Sarah is clearly unwell living here, with a man she barely knows. With his children, it's not proper. When word gets out, are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. You work at the mill. Don't you, Mr. Patterson values propriety in his employees? And there's the matter of your children. Social services take a dim view of inappropriate household arrangements. James felt Sarah stiffen beside him. The threat was clear, make this difficult. And they'd destroy his life to get to her. We'll return with the sheriff, Theodore said. We have documentation, legal documentation. Sarah is unfit to make her own decisions. The law will side with family. He looked past James to Sarah. This would be easier if you came willingly. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then we'll see you very soon, Mr. Mercer. William tipped his hat mockingly. Merry Christmas. They left, boots crunching in the snow. James watched until they disappeared down the road, then closed the door. Sarah stood frozen in the center of the cabin, trembling. I've brought danger to you, to Lucy, Tom, Emma. They'll ruin you. James, they'll make sure you lose your job. They'll question your fitness as a father. Sarah, I should leave, tonight, before they come back, before they destroy everything you've built. Sarah. James crossed to her, took her face in his hands. I'm not letting them take you. You don't understand what they're capable of. Then help me understand. But don't ask me to let you go. He searched her eyes. Don't ask me to send you back to people who'd cage you for their own profit. From the loft. Lucy's voice, Daddy, who were those men? The moment shattered. Christmas morning, ruined before it began. The gifts Sarah had carved sat under the tree, waiting for joy that now felt impossible. James looked at the woman he'd known only days, but who'd somehow become essential as breathing. At the children watching from the loft with wide, worried eyes. The choice spread before him clear as winter sky: safety or courage, isolation or love, surviving alone or risking everything for something better. He'd been surviving for 2 years. Maybe it was time to start living again. Whatever the cost. James didn't sleep that night. He sat in the darkness after Sarah retreated to her room and the children finally settled. Sat with Lucy's note in his hands. Angel needed. Daddy won't ask for help reading it over and over by dying firelight. His daughter had seen what he'd been too proud to admit they were drowning. All of them. And sometimes you needed to let someone throw you a rope, even if your pride said you should save yourself. But now the question was different. Now it wasn't about accepting help. It was about offering protection. About choosing courage when the safe path lay clear and beckoning. He could let Sarah go. Back to the cold. Back to danger. Back to people who'd cage her for profit. His life would return to what it had been: gray, exhausted, alone but safe. The mill job would be secure. No scandal would touch his children. He'd survive. But would he be teaching his children survival or cowardice? Memory surfaced. Sharp as broken glass, Mary in bed after Lucy was born. Tired but radiant. Promise me something. James, promise our children will see what courage looks like. Real courage. Not the kind that comes easy. The kind that costs something. He'd promised. Then spent 2 years teaching his children nothing but fear and isolation. Lucy had been braver than him. An 8-year-old girl, writing to angels because her father was too proud to ask for help. Maybe it was time he learned from his daughter. Dawn came gray and cold. James built up the fire, made coffee, then woke the children. Tom and Lucy came down, rubbing their eyes. Emma fussed in her cradle until Lucy picked her up. Sit down, James said. We need to talk about Miss Sarah. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on him. Waiting, trusting. Those men yesterday, they're Miss Sarah's family, or they were her husband's family. They want to take her away from here. Why? Tom asked. Is she bad? No, she's good. That's why they want her. She has something that belongs to her. And they want to take it. James chose his words carefully. If she stays here with us, those men might say unkind things about our family. They might make trouble. My job at the mill could be at risk. People in town might gossip. Lucy's jaw set in a way that reminded him painfully of Mary. So they're bullies. Yes. Rich bullies with lawyers and papers and power. And you're going to let them win. Lucy's voice rose. You're going to send Miss Sarah away because you're scared. The words landed like stones. James absorbed them, deserved them. I'm not sending her anywhere, he said quietly. I'm asking you, all of you, if you're willing to fight for her. Because it won't be easy. There might be consequences. But Miss Sarah is family now. And we don't abandon family just because standing by them is hard. Angels don't leave, Lucy said fiercely. We prayed for her. God sent her. We keep her. Tom nodded solemnly. We protect her like she protected us. Even Emma seemed to understand. Reaching her small hands toward the door where Sarah's room lay. James felt something unlock in his chest. Relief. Purpose. The first clear breath after drowning. Then we stand together, he said. All of us. Sarah appeared in the doorway then, eyes red from crying. She'd heard everything. James stood, crossed to her. I can't offer you much. Sarah Clark. I'm a mill worker with 3 children and a leaky roof. I can't compete with wealthy in-laws or bought doctors or legal papers, but I can offer you belonging. I can offer you family. I can offer you a man who'll stand between you and anyone who tries to hurt you. For as long as I'm breathing. James, if you'll stay, we'll face whatever comes. Together. Not because it's easy or safe, but because it's right. Because you matter. Because he took her hands. Because we choose you. All of us. We choose you. Sarah's tears fell freely now, but she was smiling. I was afraid to have children, afraid to have family, afraid I'd lost my chance. You haven't lost anything. You found us, or we found you. Same difference. I choose you too, she whispered. I choose this family, all of you. Lucy launched herself at both of them, arms wrapping around their waists. Tom followed. Emma squealed from her cradle, not wanting to be left out. Outside. The Christmas snow had stopped. Dawn broke clear and bright, light streaming through the windows like blessing. They'd face the wolves at the door. They'd fight the legal battles. They'd weather whatever storm came. But they'd do it together. This family forged from broken pieces and desperate prayers and one little girl's faith that angels were real. Sometimes courage looked like standing your ground when every instinct said to run. Sometimes love meant choosing risk over safety. Sometimes the best Christmas gift was simply deciding not to face the darkness alone. They walked into Pine Hollow together at mid-morning, James and Sarah side by side, Lucy holding both their hands, Tom walking tall beside them. Emma bundled against Sarah's shoulder. A public declaration, choosing visibility over hiding. People stopped to stare. Some faces showed curiosity, others disapproval. Mrs. Fletcher stood outside the mercantile with 2 other women, mouths moving with gossip James could imagine but chose not to hear. The sheriff's office sat on Main Street, a square building that looked exactly like what it was, frontier justice in wood and stone. James pushed open the door. Sheriff Morrison looked up from his desk. He was perhaps 60, weathered and practical. A man who'd seen enough human nature to surprise at little. James Mercer, he said. Heard there might be trouble heading your way. Word travels fast. Always does. What can I do for you? James gestured to Sarah. This is Sarah Clark, widow. Her late husband's family is attempting to have her declared unfit so they can seize her property. They're claiming she's mentally unstable. They have a doctor's signature saying as much. Morrison's eyes sharpened. And is she unstable? Does she look unstable to you? The sheriff studied Sarah. She met his gaze steadily. Emma comfortable in her arms. No fear or madness in her expression. Just quiet determination. No. Morrison said finally. She looks like a woman who's had a hard time but kept her head. They'll come with papers, Sarah said. Her voice was clear and level. Legal papers claiming I need to be in their custody. But those papers are based on lies. Dr. Preston was paid to sign them. I have proof. She produced letters from her dress pocket carefully preserved despite her flight, despite having nothing else. James hadn't known she'd kept them. The letters detailed the Clark family's plans, their threats, their intentions, evidence of fraud. Morrison read slowly, expression darkening. These are serious accusations, Mrs. Clark. I know, but they're true. I'm not mentally ill. I'm not a danger to myself or anyone else. I'm simply a woman who refused to be robbed. Sarah's hands tightened on Emma. And I'm asking for the law's protection. Not from my own choices, but from people trying to take my choices away. The sheriff looked at James. You're willing to vouch for her. I am. She's been living at my property as housekeeper and caregiver to my children. It's a proper arrangement. And even if it wasn't, she's an adult woman with a sound mind. She has the right to decide where she lives and who she lives with. The Clarks are wealthy men, connected. They could make trouble. They already have. James said, That's why we're here. Morrison leaned back in his chair, studying them both. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. You know what I see? I see a man brave enough to stand up for what's right, even when it costs something. I see a woman who ran for her freedom with nothing but the clothes on her back. And I see that little girl, he nodded to Lucy, who pinned a note at the church asking for angels. His smile widened. My wife told me about that note, said she'd been praying someone would answer it. You knew, Lucy asked. Eyes wide. Small town. Child. People notice things. People pray. Morrison picked up the letters Sarah had given him. I'll make a record of these. When the Clarks come, and they will come, I'll let them know. Mrs. Clark is under the protection of this office, that any attempt to seize her against her will would be considered kidnapping, that their doctor's signature looks mighty suspicious given the evidence to the contrary. Relief washed through James like floodwater. Thank you. Don't thank me for doing what's right. That's just the job. But Morrison's expression softened. You two thinking of making this arrangement permanent? James looked at Sarah. She looked back. In her eyes, he saw the same question he felt. Is this real? Is this happening? Yes, he said. If she'll have me, then you should probably ask her proper. Morrison said dryly. James turned to Sarah. Lucy and Tom pressed close, watching with delight. Emma gurgled her approval. Sarah Clark. I'm a poor man with 3 children and a leaky roof. I can't promise you ease or comfort or anything resembling an easy life. But I can promise you belonging, family, a man who will stand beside you through whatever comes. He took her free hand. If you're willing, if you want this broken, patch together family as much as we want you, then marry me. Sarah's tears came again, but she was smiling through them. Yes, yes, James, I want this family. I want you, all of you, Lucy cheered. Tom clapped. Emma laughed. Even Sheriff Morrison looked pleased. Well then, I'd say that settles things nicely. When the Clarks show up, I'll let them know Mrs. Clark is about to become Mrs. Mercer, and any attempt to interfere with a citizen's right to marry whoever she pleases will be met with the full force of the law, small as that force may be out here. They left the sheriff's office together and stepped into bright winter sunlight. People still stared, but James found he didn't care. Let them stare. Let them gossip. His family was whole. His heart was full. For for the first time in 2 years. He wasn't just surviving, he was living. By afternoon, word had spread through Pine Hollow like wildfire. James Mercer and the widow Clark were getting married. The responses ranged from scandalized disapproval to delighted support. The pastor's wife brought a basket of food. "We saw your daughter's note," she said. Eyes kind. "We've been praying." The mill foreman's daughter stopped Sarah on the street. "My mother stayed with us after my father died. Family is who shows up, not who shares blood. Pay no mind to the gossips." Even some of James's co-workers at the mill expressed quiet approval. Not everyone, Mrs. Fletcher still sniffed her disapproval, but enough to matter. When Theodore and William Clark returned that evening with bluster and threats, Sheriff Morrison met them at his office door. "Mrs. Clark is under the protection of this office," he said flatly. "She's of sound mind, as multiple witnesses will attest. She's engaged to marry Mr. James Mercer. Any attempt to interfere will result in charges. Do we understand each other?" The Clarks left without Sarah, left with their legal papers and their bought doctor and their entitled rage, but they left. That night, in the cabin, James built up the fire while Sarah put the children to bed. When she came back down, he was waiting. "I need to ask you properly," he said. "Without sheriffs or children or anyone else, just us." "You already asked." "I know. But I want to ask again. When it's just your answer and mine, with no pressure, no audience, no desperation driving the question." He took her hands. "Sarah Clark, I love you. Not because you saved us, though you did. Not because you needed saving, though you did. I love you because you're brave and kind and fierce. Because you see my children as precious. Because when I look at you, I see tomorrow. Not just today. Because you make me want to be better than I am." Sarah was crying again, but smiling too. "You already are better than you think. James Mercer." "Then marry me, not to escape your in-laws, not for protection or practicality. Marry me because you want to, because you love me too, or because you think you might. Given time." "I already do," she whispered. "I love you too. I love your children. I love this small, patched-together life we're building. I thought I'd lost my chance at family, but maybe I just needed to find the right family. The one I chose, not the one I inherited." He kissed her then, gentle and sure, a promise, a beginning. Outside, snow began to fall again. But inside the cabin, the fire burned warm and bright. Inside, a family forged from broken pieces and desperate prayers and impossible grace began to build something that would last. Spring came to Pine Hollow in shades of green and gold. James stood in the doorway of his cabin, their cabin now, watching Sarah in the garden. She had Emma on her hip, pointing out the first shoots of vegetables breaking through dark earth. Tom knelt nearby, carefully patting soil around bean seeds. Lucy sat on the porch, reading aloud from a primer, her voice carrying clear and confident in the warm air. 4 months since Christmas Eve. 4 months since he'd walked through that door expecting cold darkness, and found lamplight instead. Found Sarah. Found hope. They'd married in February. A quiet ceremony in the church with Pastor Williams and a handful of friends. Lucy had served as flower girl, declaring afterward with complete satisfaction, "I told everyone angels were real. Nobody believed me, but I was right." She had been right. The cabin had changed in small ways that signaled permanence. A garden planted where before there'd been only bare ground. The roof repaired neighbors had helped. Men who'd initially been skeptical, but warmed when they saw the family was real. The love genuine. Flower sack curtains in the windows, cheerful and bright. Tom's carved horse sat on the mantel. Lucy's corn-husk dolls decorated the tree that still stood in the corner. They'd kept it up through winter, unwilling to let go of the magic that had begun on Christmas Eve. Sarah had started teaching reading to minors' children twice a week, earning small income that helped, not that they needed much. James still worked hard. But he came home now to warmth, to laughter, to a partner who shared the load instead of carrying it alone. The children had blossomed like spring flowers. Tom laughed more, his natural joy no longer buried under his father's exhaustion. Emma blessed. Miraculous Emma had started walking last week, toddling between James and Sarah with delighted shrieks. And Lucy. Lucy wrote letters now to friends, to relatives, to anyone who'd read them. No more notes asking for angels. Now she wrote thank you notes instead. Dear God, she'd written last Sunday, showing James the letter before pinning it at church. Thank you for sending Miss Sarah. I knew you would. Love. Lucy Mercer. The Clarks had never returned. Sheriff Morrison had sent official word to them and to the Territorial Marshal's office detailing their attempted fraud. There would be no asylum, no stolen property, no more harassment. Sarah was free. They both were. Sarah looked up from the garden and caught James watching. She smiled that smile he'd come to know and love, the one that lit her entire face. He smiled back, heart full to bursting. He thought about that Christmas Eve, how he'd trudged through snow, certain he had nothing left to give his children. How he'd been so wrong. He'd had everything that mattered: love, determination, the willingness to keep showing up even when it hurt. And Sarah had needed refuge, but she'd brought gifts more valuable than gold: her capable hands, her fierce heart, her willingness to choose them when she could have kept running. Sometimes what you needed found you when you finally stopped pretending you didn't need it. Sometimes angels didn't come with wings and halos. Sometimes they came with patched dresses and calloused hands and hearts brave enough to answer a child's prayer. Daddy, it's about a girl who plants a garden. James crossed the yard, stepping into the life he'd never imagined he'd have again. Sarah joined him, Emma on her hip, Tom trailing behind with dirt-smudged hands and a grin that could light the darkness. They sat together on the porch, all five of them, close and warm and complete. Lucy read her story. Tom interjected commentary about proper planting depth. Emma babbled along as if she understood every word, and James held Sarah's hand, feeling the calluses that matched his own, thinking about the years ahead. Hard years, probably. The mill wouldn't suddenly pay more. Winter would come again. Life would bring challenges and sorrows along with joys, but they'd face it together. This family forged from impossible circumstances and desperate faith. They'd weather whatever storms came. They'd keep showing up for each other, day after day, year after year. The snow would come again when winter returned, heavy and cold. But the cabin would stay warm. The garden would sleep but not die. The family would endure. Some miracles weren't loud or showy. Some miracles looked like a woman at a stove, a note pinned at a church, a man choosing courage over comfort. Some miracles looked like ordinary people doing extraordinary things, like loving fiercely, standing firm, and believing that tomorrow could be better than today.